Good morning, Innsmouth! Don't touch that dial, crank those audio feeds, for you have found the neon-accelerated waves of Vox-Free Radio, 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio. Like a mind on Hive Shrooms, we're going to peel back the reality of our experiences and reveal the truth, that we are all one consciousness, co-signed to the rhythmic vibrations of the Underhive. Anyway, here's Marky with the weather.
It's raining, so it's looking like we're at a little bit of acid rain in the hive today. Seems like it's never ending. Be sure to bring your four-armed rats inside, or else we're going to have a cookout. Look out, because if you forget about them, it's going to be a block party of scorched rats.
Mama Bexy has once again opened her heart and her back room to our Vox surfing hooliganism. In return for the protection of extra muscle, a profusion of plasma, and the ill-advised willingness to use it.
As Gabo hinted, riots have spread across the Underhive once again. The new cult of the Sump has been spraying deep ones and daggone on buildings to loot they claim, drowning Underhivers to save them.
To save them? That doesn't sound very nice. Remember, Mama Bexy's never closes, but some say it opens at third shift. Make sure to come down on Tuesday nights for her 2-for-1 Muty Lap Dance and Manwich Meal Special.
Hey man, that's a good deal. That's like 5 toilets right there. A 2-for-1 Muty Lap Dance. Yeah. That's what's up, dude.
You had me at Muty Lap Dance.
I'll be your swashbuckling bushwhacker on this tour of Inner Innsmouth Goblin King, joined today by the steel-minded trap of our geological geographer, Marky.
Is that 3 las pistols, or are you rubbing something else on my face?
You'll have to ask our senior safety officer, Beast, who's bringing up the rear and making sure we don't get chomped on by any oversized critters.
I'd say I'm more watching the rear.
This is why we don't put them on our 6.
All right, guys, this is our official first episode of year 2 of the podcast. Our first episode dropped April 14th, 2021, which was 4 days ago by the time you guys will hear this episode. Maybe 5 days ago. It was days ago by the time you'll hear this episode. I think we've come a long way and we've learned a lot, probably seeing some of the challenges of podcasting out of order, specifically with my move to the Midwest. I don't think a lot of podcasts go through we're becoming remote before they hit the year 1 mark. We definitely, I feel like we've kind of dropped into a better flow with starting with our first series on the Orks. And I think we've just kind of gotten a little bit better and a little bit tighter ever since then. Not that we were floundering before, but I think we had an idea and we didn't know how to execute on it. We kind of found our footing in a way.
Yeah, tighter is always better.
Yeah, I think...
Except for when you're trying to squeeze into your pants, I guess.
I think that would be the only series that I would go back and redo. If somebody were to ask me, like, is there anything you want to redo? I would be really tempted to kind of gut reaction. What's up?
History of everything.
I would be
was
really
a redo.
Tempted.
That was a redo. We redid that like 3 times.
Oh, yeah. I would be tempting. It would be tempting to say that, like, hey, I want to redo the history of everything. But honestly, I would just say, that was an experiment. We found that we didn't like it that much, but I think the Orc faction overview I would redo. Not even that I don't like what we did, it's that I just feel like it needed another episode. Just a little bit more information. You guys have anything you'd redo
besides the history of everything? Because that was a rough one. Just toss it out. Not redo, just toss it out.
I would redo the redos, right? Where we don't do the redo.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, my redo would be not doing a redo.
Yes.
That would be my redo.
As we keep moving forward, we're going to hit everything, and we're going to hit a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about in more detail, especially if you guys want us to.
Yeah, we'll hit babies too.
I'll get hit with a brick. It just happens. As we move into season 2, which is also year 2, we have a couple of other ideas on other episode styles and types that we're going to play around with. We've found our stride and narrowed down and kind of gotten to our voice. And it's become pretty clear that most of what actually interests us is finding a lot of the foundation points in order to build new lore from. Our lore series, which we've been doing, focus on factions, and this helps a lot because it gives us that timeline covering side of things, but we aren't really covering the full timeline. We're not going to the beginning of the universe and breaking it down, and we have this tendency to kind of bounce back and forth in sequence because we're focused on the faction or we're focused on the topic rather than trying to cram everything into as few lines as possible. We have teased out quite a few different ideas over the last year, and probably none of them more than us mentioning that we're going to do an episode on the planet of Armageddon.
That sounds about right. We've teased a lot of things that we probably still haven't talked about.
It's probably our most teased coming soon, though. At one point, Beast in a production meeting was like, "Stop talking about it, planet."
Stop saying that we're going to talk about it. Just talk about
it. With that in mind, we're introducing our Planet Spotlight series. So we will be taking a dive into a single planet and giving it sort of a mini-series treatment. We're going to try to combine these all to one episode, but a couple of the planets may end up being more than one. If we ever were to do like a Planet Spotlight Terra, it'd probably end up being a couple episodes. We're going to play around with it. We also have a couple of other ideas in mind, including doing a little bit more creative writing, workshopping episodes, and looking at some of the other tips, tricks, and best practices that we use in world building in general. As always, though, we feel it's best to establish just baselines using the existing lore. And what better place to start than the world of Armageddon itself?
Yeah, we'll talk about it on another episode.
Yeah.
Just teasing.
All right, good episode, guys. That was it for us. We'll talk to you.
Right.
Like we're actually talking about the planet of a giant, large, fat man rolled up into a ball.
Dude, when we get to Demon Worlds, it's going to be fucking wild.
It's going to get real weird real quick.
Oh, yeah, I remember that planet now.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh,
Yeah.
It took me a minute.
Dude, you remember, so there was a skit in Jackass where they had like the volcano?
Oh, and it was the butt.
Yeah.
He was pooping.
So
Yeah,
good.
I remember that.
So good.
That was
I imagine that's kind of what it's like.
my favorite part was that he did it, and he's like, ah, because it like got on his face. Ugh.
Okay, so let's jump into Armageddon. You guys ready?
One more joke. So you know how they have the what are the
It's funny.
what are the things called in Dune?
Sandworms?
Sandworm. Yeah, it's a sandworm.
How's it a butt joke?
What is?
The dude's
Where's the
dick.
butt? Oh, on the Fat Man planet. It's a sand.
Oh, okay. I was like, what, he just rolls around through the folds. Is that?
yeah.
Ooh,
Man, Demon Worlds are going to be fun.
I call that flap fucking.
All right, guys. So Armageddon is an Imperial Hive world and industrial world. It is located in the Segmentum Solar, the Armageddon sector, get this, the Armageddon subsector, and get this, the Armageddon system.
So
It's
original.
about 100,000 light years to the galactic northeast of Terra. Such a Warhammer thing where like everything has the same name.
I mean, it makes sense what you wouldn't want the planet Armageddon in the Paradise sector, right?
Right.
Well, I just look at it this way: how many first streets do we have?
That's true.
Not enough.
Or frontage road.
Probably one more than you think.
That's true. So we've talked about hive worlds in the past, but really quickly, let's talk about industrial worlds. So industrial worlds are classified by the Imperium as planets whose surface is devoted completely to manufacturing or heavy mining and refining. In general, they have much more sparse populations than a hive world or a forge world, as most often the labor is traditionally done with servitors and heavy machinery. However, Armageddon holds the distinction of being both a hive world and an industrial world. And industrial worlds, I feel like it's a cool concept. We didn't talk about it in our planet building episode. I think it definitely, as we look at doing some more planet building, some more planet brainstorming stuff, I like the idea of diving deeper into what an industrial world is.
It's got a lot of pipes. That's just what I think of when you say industrial world. I'm like, there's a lot of pipes there.
Like the Industrial Revolution kind of looking planet.
Yeah.
Silos.
Pipes and silos. So the planet of Armageddon has been the site of several major conflicts that have impacted the modern landscape of the Imperium of Man. Most notably, at least to the Administratum scribes, is the First War of Armageddon, which was against Chaos, and then the Second and Third Wars of Armageddon, which have been fought against the Ork Wogs of Warlord Ghazghul Thraka. Now, I specifically said to Administratum scribes because the First War of Armageddon isn't actually remembered by that many people.
Well, it wasn't called that, wasn't it?
It's called the First War of Armageddon, but a lot of people call the Second War of Armageddon the First War of Armageddon.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. The first war wasn't like It's like people talking about World War One, and they just call it the Great War.
The Great War, yeah.
Yeah, it had like a different name, I thought.
So Armageddon is the 4th of 10 planets in its system, and it is an industrial hub of the entire Armageddon subsector, as well as a large portion of the larger sector in general, making it a titan of industry for many worlds that are within a several light-year radius of the planet. Thousands of years of intense industrialization have reduced the surface of Armageddon to a barren wasteland, choked with polluted oceans. The human population, which numbers are hard to calculate but are probably in the tens of billions, can only survive inside the walls of the world's hive cities and the world's many military installations. Food is imported from off-world, and clean air and clean water are expensive as they are hard to refine, making all 3 of these things very precious commodities. Because of these inhospitable conditions, the Armageddon Steel Legion, the planet's Imperial Guard regiments, are trained almost exclusively as mechanized infantry who operate from the relative safety of their vehicles.
So you know how in Spaceballs they have the was it air in a can? And then like
I was thinking of that Dr. Seuss one where there's like O'Hare.
oh
O'Hare,
yeah,
air.
O'Hare. Dude, that shit's so funny.
Right.
That's an underrated movie. Lorax.
Here's a Sneed. What?
I can just see somebody in the Armageddon Steel Legion, like a tank commander, being like,
Right.
sniffing out of the air can.
Be like, hey Sarge, can I get some of that? Fuck no, it was mine.
I bought this air fair and square.
Just putting it into their gas canisters they breathe out of.
You just farting it, dude.
What was it? Was it Perry Air and
Yeah, Perry Air. That's what it was.
Perry Air.
I like the idea. I know that Kev had mentioned it in our last guard episode, but the idea that the Armageddon Steel Legion doesn't really exist without their vehicles. I realized it, but I guess I didn't really realize it at the same time. And I know you've played around with the idea of doing Armageddon Steel Legion, Marky.
Yeah, just because of the kill team bucks.
Okay, got you. So you would specifically be doing like a mechanized retrieval unit or something. You wouldn't be doing like heavy tanks or something.
I don't know how I would do it. I like the look of them. I like the Death Corps of Krieg, but I like the look of the tan coats of the Steel Legion a lot better. Like just personally.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna segue into my next shitty joke. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they had like the clean air can, right? But if they had like a joke can that's actually just fart air. So like, here you go, man. Like I got you, bro.
It's the worm in the can, but
Haven't
it's
you
a fart.
seen that dude that like he like farts into a bag and then he's like, here, breathe it in, it's helium. And the guy's like,
I have not. That's fucking amazing.
There's that one guardsman in every fucking tank command in the Steel Legion.
Yeah, you don't trust
too
him.
much beans.
There's
He just
one Kevin.
sits in the back, hot boxing it.
There's one Kevin.
There's one, yeah, right.
There's a couple of times that he's farted on the mic. I've had to fucking edit it out.
Yeah, you shouldn't, guys. I have to smell it. Other people can hear it.
It's just sometimes it's hard to tell what it is.
During
like,
his motherfucking wedding, his now wife called him their constantly deflating balloon. All right. During the wedding, like this dude suffers from gas. Like
that was the roast,
right? I was gonna fart.
No, that was with love.
No, that was a part of
their wedding vow.
Yeah. I was gonna fart while they were doing it just to be like, people.
Oh, speaking of, Kevin had such a bad. He closed out his vows so well. I forgot what the fuck he said, but it was so good. Oh, it was like something like. It's like you want.
Yeah, no, he straight up said, he was like, love, the fucking love is eternal, blah blah blah, and only in death. I was like, so it's my duty to do this, and only in death will my duty end.
It was so good.
I was like yeah, all of us were like, damn.
Yeah, I was like, I heard that, and I was like, fuck, Kevin, that was good. Fuck, that was so good. I was like, normally, you hear somebody say that shit, and it's like a little cringy, right? Yeah. But like Kevin said, and I was like, oh, that gave me chills.
Yeah, and like literally at that point, like every one of us Warhammer people,
we're just
all looked at each other. Like,
that's pretty awesome. So in the modern 40k timeline, after the Cicatrix Maledictum tore the galaxy in half, massive warp energies bathed Armageddon, transforming the planet into a hellscape, allowing demonic armies of Khorne and Tzeentch to sweep across the planet's surface, turning much of it into battlefields that are no longer anchored in the laws of the Imperium. These demonic forces have so far focused on battling amongst themselves as much as threatening the remaining forces of the Imperium and Orks, who were left on the planet in the wake of the Third War of Armageddon. Among the Imperium forces are 25 regiments of the Astra Militarum, elements of 9 Adeptus Astartes chapters, and the citizens of the Hive world itself. A variety of Orc clans also still occupy large portions of the planet.
All right, so I'm on one today.
Okay.
So like, imagine like the upper hivers.
Okay.
They're pointing out in the distance, and it's like, yeah, we don't go there. Like, well, why not? It's like it's just demons fucking all the time over there. You must never go there.
It's like
that's hate fuck Ridge over there.
Yeah, why that dark place? Why don't we go there?
That shadowed area.
You don't go there, Simba.
Like his name's Blimbo. It's like Blimbo. You must never go there.
Oh my God! I just got a new origin for Disney night.
Oh God! Here we go.
Simba.
Wrong episode, Tom.
Simba's on Armageddon, son. What's up?
There you go.
All that the light touches is fucked.
What about that dark place? It's double fucked.
Especially fucked.
Imperial reinforcements eventually arrived, led by elements of the 9 Astartes chapters with a salamander in overall command. And they recently succeeded in halting a demonic ritual that would have brought Angron, the Primarch of the World Eaters, back to the world that had defied him during the First War of Armageddon. So with that, we will jump into the history of Armageddon. And I kind of knew some of this. I half knew this. And when I found out the rest during my research, I was like, they what? So I'm kind of hoping you guys have the same reaction.
Most of what I know of Armageddon is like, anytime you hear about like, oh man, there was this crazy like world-ending battle happening, blah, 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 blah. You're like, oh, it's probably on Armageddon.
Yeah.
Like anytime you hear about those stories, you're just like, oh, it's probably there. You know, like that's just what you hear, you know, like in any of these big battles or crazy. Oh, did you hear about how this fucking Space Marine did this and this and this against these and this and that? It was on Armageddon. Like, that's just, it's like the place. Like, it's like Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Hollywood.
I think through a good chunk of like 4th, 5th, and 6th, a lot of stuff happened, like game-wise, on Armageddon. There were a lot of box sets that dealt with Armageddon. There were a lot of codex supplements that dealt with Armageddon. There was a lot of stuff on Armageddon. Armageddon is definitely the why the Orks are in the universe linchpin in a lot of ways. We are going to go all the way back 10,000 years to the Ullanor Crusade. The origins of the planet have been lost to Imperial records, possibly on purpose, for the roots of Armageddon are set 10,000 years in the past, during the Great Crusade, taking place in a campaign known as the Ullanor Crusade. The Ullanor Crusade marked the high point of the Great Crusade's efforts to reunite all of humanity after the Age of Strife, with the Emperor deploying 100,000 Astartes from the Luna Wolves, White Scars, and Ultramarines legions, with 8 million Imperial Army troops, 100 Titans, and 600 starships of the Imperial Armada in support, all against the Orc overlord Urlach Urk, who had amassed the greatest greenskin empire ever encountered by mankind, up to that point, on the world of Ullanor Prime. While the Emperor led the Crusade forces, the Luna Wolves Legion commander, Primarch Horus Lupercal, led the direct assault on Orc Warlord's forces, defeating him and scattering his greenskins.
That didn't happen.
A great imperial triumph, the Triumph of Ullanor, was held for the participating forces. The Mecahnicum geoformers paved a massive boulevard across the planet that was as wide as some imperial cities. They crushed and leveled mountains while burying millions of Orc dead, some still in their ruined cities, under this titanic project.
So would you say it was a boulevard of broken dreams?
Stop it. Shitty jokes are my job.
I
Stop
hate
it.
that song.
Stop it. Stop
This
it.
highway was all that was allowed to exist other than one other structure which stood beside it. This great platform an ornamental pavilion of black marble and heavy granite that had been built piecemeal on Terra and then shipped across the void by special envoy. There were marker posts decorated with the skulls of orc commanders spaced out the length of this road, and behind them great bowls of smokeless promethium burned brightly, endlessly lighting the highway with their blue-white fire.
Kind of bougie ass shit is that? Those bougie shit everywhere. I'm gonna make
Emperor
this
one, man.
I'm gonna make this pretty castle, and then I'm gonna flex, and I'm gonna send it across the galaxy and go put it on another planet.
He's all
not even a castle. It's just a fucking platform. They built a fucking town square.
Just like, yo, look at me.
So the forces of the Olenor Crusade paraded down this wide highway in celebration. It was at this celebration that the Emperor of Mankind announced his intentions to return to Terra, naming Horus the supreme commander of all of mankind's forces, giving him the newly created imperial title of War Master.
Man, how much dick did that dude suck?
Horus?
Yeah.
Lots.
Like, all I ever hear about is like, we're the best fucking dude, blah, blah, blah.
If there was a dick, it was sucked.
So I have a quote on the dick sucking. You are
Here
like
you go, Tom. Would you like to read it?
Oh, say what?
So yeah, you want to do your best Emperor of Mankind for us?
Oh,
or do you...
fuck me. Am I reading this?
I can
All
do
right,
it.
hold on. The Emperor of Mankind. Oh, God. What would the Emperor even talk like? Oh, I know.
He can talk like a total Chad.
I know exactly what he would talk like.
You gotta do the dude from fucking, what is it? Life of Brian, the Imperial guy, the Imperial Senator.
Oh, is this the part?
You are like a sun, and together we have all but conquered the galaxy.
No, he's more like the Emperor. More like, you're like a son to me.
He'd just be like a Gungan, dude.
You're like a son to me.
You got to do like a Gungan.
No, I will not. No, that is way too racist. If I talk like that, I'm not doing it.
Oh my god. All right.
All seriousness. Here we go. I can't.
Stop. My head hurts. Don't make me laugh.
I'm all right. I cracked myself up. Anyway, all right. I'm not doing this in Space Marine voice. I'll just do it in my actual accent here.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect.
You are like a sun, and together we have all but conquered the galaxy. Now the time has come for me to retire to Terra. My work as a soldier is done, and now passes to you, for I have great tasks to perform in my earthly sanctum. I name you War Master, and from this day forth, all my armies and generals shall take orders from you, as if the words came from my own mouth. But words of caution I have for you, for your brother Primarchs are strong of will, of thought, and of action. Do not seek to change them, but use their particular strengths well. You have much work to do, for there are still many worlds to liberate, many peoples to rescue. My trust is with you. Hail Horus. Hail the War Master. Now suck my dick.
Dude, it's like fucking Henry Cavill, dude. That was good.
Oh, Henry
Emperor.
Cavill.
The Emperor of
That's
Mankind.
one dick I would
I
suck.
would.
Whoa.
I fucking would. I don't care who knows it. If Henry Cavill was like, hello, Tom, I'd be like,
So that was
Hey, Henry.
he's just so cool. I just
come
want
on
to
our
hang out with him.
podcast, please.
I just want to
Please
hang
come on
out
our
with him.
podcast.
That's it.
Oh, he's not coming now. Oh, he might be. But
That could have been the thing that
he
changed
will.
it.
Trust me.
if I'm in the room, he's coming.
If I got anything to say about it, I'll make that shit work.
So that was a quote by the Emperor of Mankind during the triumph of Olenor. This is often seen as the linchpin moment that led to the Horus heresy, but we are not going to cover that.
Yeah, right, there it is.
That was it. That was the one.
There's
That's
your
the
one.
one tease.
There's your one.
Yeah, you get no more. That's it.
I ain't
So the
getting no
War
blue balls.
of the Beast. About
not
15
me, just to be clear.
About 1,500 years later in M32, a massive orc wog, led by the mysterious orc warlord known only as the Beast, began to tear across the Imperium, growing even larger than the greenskin wog that Horus had defeated on Olinor Prime. The Beast centered his new empire on the long-forgotten world of Olinor Prime, which by this time had become nothing more than a footnote in the things best left forgotten because they were associated with Horus. The orc bodies, buried under so much Mecahnicum effort, had seeded and infested the planet until it became a very urbanized and industrious orc world, which was completely covered by an extremely organized network of orc settlements.
There's cum everywhere.
The seed, yeah, right. The seed. I was reading the whole thing where they were like, they leveled the planet and buried the orcs underground, and I'm like, this is not going to end well. Like, you don't just bury orcs.
Yeah, right. Don't do that. That's what they do. Don't do that.
That's what I do, baby.
Don't do that.
The seat of the beast's power was the orc capital city of Gorkograd, like Stalingrad, but Gorkograd, built into the massive Temple Gargant, which sat on the exact spot the Emperor had honored the Primarchs and named Horus Warmaster 1,500 years early. Talk about fucking throwing shade, man. The beast intended to turn the planet into a perfected orc attack moon and use its template to make many, many more, converting the entire planet into a mobile battle station capable of teleporting itself through subspace. His target was Terra, as the beast saw mankind as the Greenskin's greatest enemy. Vulcan, Primarch of the Salamanders, led the first invasion of Olinor, along with the Astartes successor chapters of the Imperial Fists, who had formed the Terran Defense Initiative called the Last Wall. They focused on the capital city of Gorkograd. Toward the end of the battle, Vulcan charged into the Temple Gargant, intending to battle the beast in single combat. It was during this fight that the Temple Gargant was destroyed in a massive explosion, which seemed to obliterate Vulcan and the beast. This shattered any organized threat the orcs still posed, and their resistance collapsed quickly. However, unknown to the Imperium, the orcs continued to secretly occupy Olinor Prime. Eventually, a second invasion of Olinor was launched, which included the newly created Death Watch, among several other Space Marine and Imperial Guard forces, as well as the Fraternus Templar, which were disbanded in M36, the Scutari and Legio Cybernetica, Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, Imperial Night Houses, Sisters of Silence, and a Warlord and Warhound Titan. During this second invasion, the planet and Gorkograd itself, an assassination force of Death Watch and supporting Imperial forces, discovered that there were actually 6 beasts, or prime orcs, each a beast unto himself and the commander of a green skin legion, a parody of the Space Marine legions of the Crusade era. Grokland, the Lord Commander of the Imperium and sole surviving member of the original Imperial Fists chapter, was killed. The Imperial forces were forced to withdraw. Later, Maximum Thane, the chapter master of the Fists Exemplar, led the final desperate Imperial campaign of the War of the Beast during the third invasion of Olinor. The Imperial forces redirected asteroids as weapons of mass destruction to devastate the orc-held planet. With them was the help of the Sisters of Silence, who used a captured orc weird boy to focus their null effect anti-psyker energy through the weird boy's powers himself, unleashed a reverse wog. The effect was it utterly devastated the green-skinned hordes of the beast, and the beast was finally slain. Maximus Thane became the chapter master of the Imperial Fists and was elected as the new Lord Commander of the Imperium by the Senatorium Imperialis. He then ordered the Adaptus Mechanicus to exterminatus Olinor Prime and erase its memory from history to prevent the rise of another beast. However, for the servants of the machine god, the destruction of so much advanced xenotechnology was blasphemy, and the acquisition of knowledge superseded all other considerations. So the Fabricator General Kubik instead acted in direct contradiction to his orders, reversed engineered the Orky teleporta?
Yeah, teleporter. Teleporter. Say it right, Tom. Teleporter.
Teleporter.
Say it right, Tom. Teleporter.
I am saying it fucking right.
He reverse engineered this technology that had been scattered all over the planet and teleported the entire planet of Olinor Prime through the warp to a new location on the edge of the Segmentum Solar.
See that?
To an uninhabited star system that was marked for future colonization. Kubik reported back to the High Lords of Terra that the Orc world had been cast into the heart of the nearest blue supergiant, and Olinor Prime was marked out of Imperial records. The Fabricator General
put in the wrong coordinates.
Fabricator General then set about stripping Olinor Prime to its core for any traces of Xenos technology. Along the way, he eradicated any traces of the Orcish presence on the world in order to protect the secrets of the Mechanicum's deception. After a few centuries, the planet that had once been known as Olinor Prime became a prime location for human settlement due to its strategic location and virgin status as an unexplored world. No longer known as Olinor, the planet became known as Armageddon. I knew that Olinor was Armageddon. I did not know that the Mechanicum was like, oh yeah, we totally destroyed it. And then like behind the Imperium's back was all like, yeet, to a different segmentum.
Like, now we keeping this.
They're like, nah, fuck you. It's ours.
Why are you going to call a virgin planet Armageddon?
Because it's what you turn it into. Because you turn it into the fucking apocalypse, homie.
But it's interesting that it took the Mechanicus like pulling apart the planet, like I'm assuming rock by rock and molecule by molecule to destroy traces of the Orcs because they didn't want to get caught to actually remove the Orc infestation. That's what it took.
God damn.
All right.
Need to be weedy, boys.
So now that the planet is known as Armageddon, we're going to talk about the First War of Armageddon. As we mentioned when we covered the history of the Imperial Guard, the First War of Armageddon is probably also the least known conflict that has been fought on the world. Chaos cultists devoted to Khorne rebelled against the planet's Imperial government during a warp storm. Soon a Space Hulk appeared over the planet, which was under the command of Angron, the demon primarch of the World Eaters Traitor Legion. Angron invaded, and the cultists and demonic forces pushed the planet to its breaking point. Thankfully, Imperial reinforcements arrived in the form of the Space Wolves and Grey Knights. With these reinforcements, the planet was able to hold its own, allowing the Grey Knights to cut a path through the demonic hordes to eventually banish Angron back to the warp. However, the victory was short-lived, as in order to preserve the secret of Angron's existence, the entire population of Armageddon, including the surviving soldiers of the PDF and Guard, were rounded up, sterilized, and sentenced by the Ordo Malleus to the Imperial Arbites work camps of the rest of the system for the rest of their lives.
Blessed.
An entire new population was brought in to resettle the planet. Logan Grimnar, the chapter master and Great Wolf of the Space Wolves, has never forgiven the Inquisition for such a brutal betrayal to the men and women that protected the Imperium from the forces of chaos.
Well, technically it was the Grey Knights, wasn't it?
As the Inquisition.
It was yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, do other Space Marines know about the Grey Knights?
Yes.
They do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it only makes sense, right? Because they pull the strongest psychers or whatever the fuck or some shit like that. Yeah. They don't pull the strongest psychers. Their gene seed is like has a lot of psychers, right?
Yeah. So the way that the Grey Knights, well, so to a normal Imperial citizen, and we've kind of talked about this before, and when you approach the game from a game standpoint, Space Marines are ubiquitous. They're fucking everywhere. Space Marines are the thing. When you look at Space Marines from a lore perspective, there's only like 100 million in existence, period. Which, when you look at the fact that some Hive worlds or some hives, not
billions
Hive worlds,
in a hive,
have like 32 to 34 billion people living in them, that's really not a lot of people, or Space Marines. So the idea that even an Imperial Guard soldier encounters a Space Marine it's not going to happen that often.
Astronomical,
right.
Let alone a Grey Knight.
Let alone a Grey Knight.
It's pronounced Astronomicon.
Yes. It's right next to the Necronomicon in the Anomicon section of the library.
In the amniotic fluid.
So yeah, I think the idea that Space Marines definitely know about the Grey Knights because they're going to be deployed with them. But in this particular case, the Grey Knights and the Space Wolves reacted, and then the Grey Knights and the Inquisition pulled this, and the fucking Space Wolves were like, "Are you fucking kidding? Like, these are heroes. Why would you do this? And when we
Because
talk,
not supposed to know.
You imagine what
no.
what the Space Marines think when like the Grey Knights show up? They're like, they look at him, they're like, "What, you think you're fucking better than me? Eh?
Think you're so
100%,
fucking
man.
cool?
You think you're fucking better than me? Eh?"
You're so
think
fucking
just
cool with
because
that
you're-
fucking silver armor? You think you're fucking better than me?
You got a bolter on a stick? Huh?
you think just because you start collecting pox is more than mine, you're better than me?
Right? We got a fucking Dread Knight. Go fuck yourself.
Our entire line is plastic now. You still have metal. You're not better than me. I'm more evolved.
You think you're fucking better than me because you got that box? You're fucking super healthy. You got some psychopaths. Go fuck yourself.
The Grey Knights. I really like the Grey Knight aesthetic, but the more that I learn about the Grey Knights, the more I'm like, I don't really like my Grey Knights.
Oh, dude, the first time I was like, Grey Knights are fucking awesome. And then you learn about them, and I'm like, I don't like them.
These guys are dicks.
I only like Grey Knight Terminators. Other than that, I don't really give a shit about Grey Knights. I don't give a shit about like their.
I don't care what anybody says. I love Dread Knights. Go fuck yourselves. Fight me.
I don't really
Fight
care. I
Dread
don't
Knights.
care for them.
Dread Knights are cool because they make me think of the dock defense robots in
That's what I'm talking about,
second
man.
Matrix.
APU, son.
those things are
APUs.
dope.
Nah, that reminded me more of like the Invictor tactical war suit,
Yeah, see, like that, like people talk shit on the Dread
baby
Knight.
carrier.
Yeah, because they call it the baby carry, and I'm like, yeah, but if you're in power armor, right, and you want a power armor exoskeleton, you don't need a cage around you. You're in power armor. You're doing it for is have longer reach and longer legs.
It's redundant.
Yeah, and that's what a Dread Knight has. Dread Knight's like, you don't need all that shit. Here, longer legs, longer
Jump in
arms.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the second
Longer
and third
dick.
wars of Armageddon. Power assist.
Look at my sword.
My sword. So the second and third wars of Armageddon. War boss Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka arrived at Armageddon at the head of a massive Wa in 941.M41. The Imperial Planetary Governor, Overlord Hermann von Straub, a prideful and incompetent man, was completely unprepared for the attack, which made it that much worse. Eventually, planetary defense was taken over by Commander Dante of the Blood Angels, Space Marines.
Hell yes.
During the war, Commissar... What's up?
I just said hell yes.
Golden boy.
Dante's
During
a
the-
beast.
During the war, Commissar Yarrick, who von Straub had exiled to the Hades Hive, led a heroic defense of that hive, having raised a successful and effective militia force. This eventually distracted Gaz, who became increasingly obsessed with taking Hades from Yarrick. Gaz considered the fight a mark against his personal pride and eventually took direct control of his orc forces that were assaulting Hades himself. While Gaz was able to take Hades' hive, this distraction allowed the Imperial forces to launch a counterattack that broke the back of the Orc invasion. Although badly wounded, Yarrick survived to be a thorn in Gaz's pride. Von Straub, meanwhile, escaped the Imperial forces that were sent to jail him for his arrogant incompetence.
Isn't this the one where like the Blood Angels basically bombarded the Hades hive with drop pods and just fucked everything up?
Yeah,
They killed billions of people with their drop pods, and they fucked the orcs up too.
Yeah,
But the hivers were like, "Goddamn!"
it's one of the examples of the transhuman. What is it called? Transhuman. They have a rule for it now. Like, it used to just be a word that they used in lore, but now there's a rule for it. Transhuman something.
Physiology.
Yes. No. Transhuman psychosis. It's not in 40k. It's from Shadowrun, but it's something that they talk about in the lore. The transhuman psychosis of the fact that like you don't fucking care. Like you're a psychopath. You are so far removed from humans that you are essentially what a human psychopath would be if a human psychopath was given full plate armor.
Yeah, like no
and a bunch of
remorse,
weapons.
essentially.
Yeah.
Like it makes more sense to bombard the planet and kill billions of people and orcs than to try and sterilize the hive on foot,
Right.
in urban warfare.
Like, hey, there's 32 billion people that live in that hive, and we're gonna kill a couple mil. A couple million out of 32 billion? Who gives a
My
shit?
mission is to kill orcs, but there's like several billion people. My mission is to kill the orcs.
I fucking stutter?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna drop this fucking house on your house. Fuck off.
What is that opening, or not that opening, but that scene in fucking Bad Boys 2 where the captain's yelling at them and they're like, look at all this shit you destroyed. I was like, there's all sorts of other people down there. Yeah, but look at how much damage you did. And the Space Marines are just like, yeah, but we caught the bad guy. Like, dude, give us props. It's totally the Hollywood thing. If you ever watched, there's a channel that does they have a show called What's the Cost? And they tally the cost and collateral damage of like action movies from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Superman, they were like, the United States would never recover.
Right?
Like 21 Jump Street where the chickens blow up.
It never blows up. It's not going to blow. And then it fucking blows up.
So good.
All right, so the Third War of Armageddon. 57 years to the day from his first attempt to take the planet, Ghazghul Thraka returned at the head of a second Ork Wog, starting the Third War of Armageddon. Many of the heroes of the Second War were called back in defense of the planet, including Yarrick, but the war ground into a bloody stalemate, with neither side being able to achieve any form of measurable victory. The staggering cost of the conflict would have set Armageddon back centuries in its time to recover. Gaz eventually lost interest and left the planet, allowing the Imperium to win by an extremely narrow margin. Although many Ork clans still infested large territories on the planet. Commissar Yarrick, his Imperial Guard force, accompanied by High Marshal Helbrecht and a full Black Templars crusade, set off to pursue Ghazghul. From a culture standpoint, Orks regard Armageddon kind of like a Valhalla, or a sacred place. It's somewhere where they know they can always get a good fight, and it's a place where they know the Imperium will always send more troops to the battle, even if it's just to keep the planet in the Imperium's hands. So the Orks aren't constantly attacking Armageddon because they want it. Like there's no cultural Ork memory of Olenor Prime. The Orks are just like, man, the humans fight us real well here. Let's keep going.
Dude, can you imagine, like, from the human perspective, like the guard perspective, they're just like, fucking stop.
I don't think
and the Orks are like, yeah,
coming.
yeah, get it, yeah. And they're just like, fuck.
Fucking stop.
It's that meme where they've got like the 4 boxes, and the first box there's an Eldar, and like, we are fighting to restore our people. And the next is the humans, it's a Space Marine, and like, we are fighting to unite the entire galaxy. And then the third one is the Tau, and they're like, we're fighting for the greater good. And the last one's the Ork, and he's pointing down at the table. He's like, fight is fight.
Yeah.
Like,
fighting is fighting.
but I loved the fact that, like, even from a lore perspective, the reason the Orks keep attacking Armageddon is because they know it's a good fight. There's no other fucking reason for it.
Yeah.
So for much of its history, Armageddon has been a battleground, first at the hands of Chaos and later at the hands of the Orks. Even after Gaz lost interest and left, the fighting has continued between mankind and the green tide that resides across the planet's many battlefields. With the coming of the Great Rift, none of that fighting stopped, although it did shift in nature. During the Noctis Aeternum, reinforcements were cut off from both sides of the conflict, and those left on the planet were faced with a third front as demonic forces invaded the world from the warp storms that now ravaged across its surface. At times, this fighting was so desperate that the Orks and human forces, even those Space Marines, would fight side by side just to hold the demons at bay. By the time the Astronomicon returned to normal and the Imperium became passable once again, the Imperium relief forces arrived to find a landscape twisted by the warp and constant Coronate and Zechian invasions. Imperium and Ork forces seeking bastions of cover while titanic duels happened between greater demons that slowly warped half of the planet into a hellscape that is now a demon world. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, this is when Angron once again attempted to return, and it was only through the valiant efforts of the Imperial Guard and Space Marine forces under the command of the Salamanders that denied the planet to him a second time.
Well, I mean, here's a good example of Ork forces essentially working with, humans.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, they're not scrapping proper, They're not giving us the proper scrap, so let's beat the shit out of them, and then let's get back to scrapping how we like to scrap.
Right.
Not this nonsense of you flinging lightning bolts and shit. Or as Cornate. I mean, there's corn demons, so they get a little scrap there. But
I think it's just, like, I think at a certain point, even orcs can get beaten back to the point where they realize that they're fighting a losing battle. Like they're still,
definitely
individually, they're still enjoying the experience because they're still fighting. But as like a hive, like a gestalt intelligence, they're understanding like we're gonna die if we don't stand back to back with these things next to us. And if those things next to them are humans, they're going to do it. And same on the Imperium side. Like the Imperium fucking fighting alongside orcs is unthinkable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not like back to back, you know?
Right.
I'm sure it's more like, oh, there's an orc force over there. We're not going to shoot them. We're going to let them beat the shit out of that greater demon while we shoot the shit out of that greater demon's asshole.
No. It's totally that scene. Like the moon's coming up over Helm's Deep and the orc turns.
Yeah, the orc looks over at the guard and he's just like, "Sir."
The orc looks over at the guardsman and is like, "Bet you never thought you'd be fighting side by side with an orc." And the guardsman is like, "How about side by side with a friend?" And then the orc just rips him in half and turns to the next guy and repeats the line.
Everything about what you did just killed me. I quit the podcast.
That was so good.
It was a shitty accent and then you quoted fucking Lord of the Rings.
That was so good.
Oh, I quit.
The orc has like blonde hair.
And then later on there's some other part where the orc turns to a space marine and goes, "You're gonna have to throw me." Don't tell the guardsman.
Oh God, we gotta
make the difference. You have to touch me.
we gotta do a 40k-ified version of Lord of the Rings.
I hate it.
That'd be so good. Legolas is an orc.
I'm not doing it.
It's so good.
I'm not doing it. Well, now
Tom voices it.
Squats are back, so it can happen.
Yeah, Tom voices it.
That's right. Right.
I'll have to.
So let's talk about the geographic overview of Armageddon. So Armageddon has 3 main land masses. Most of human life is located on the main continent, which is split into 2 parts because the Imperium is really original. These 2 parts are Armageddon Prime and Armageddon Secundus. They are separated by a thick band of jungle known simply as the Equatorial Jungle. They each held roles in the Wars of Armageddon, but the majority of the fighting took place on the main continent. So kind of get that idea of what the planet looks like. Most of the information about Armageddon's geography has been limited to provide the Imperium with information that specifically deals with the fighting of the war, and specifically the Third War of Armageddon. A lot of stuff happened during the Third War of Armageddon, so there's a lot more Imperial data about that stuff.
Yeah, this is where the War of the Beast happened, essentially. Didn't Vulcan get, like, yeeted into fucking space? This is that, right?
No. That's back during when it was still Olinar Prime.
Oh, okay.
So basically, Olinor Prime was moved by the Mechanicus into this new place, and then the planet healed. You know, the planet had a couple of hundred years of the Mechanicum ripping stuff out of it, and then like the planet kind of came back to a semi-normal. The way that it's described, let's see, yeah, its temperature and climate. That's what I was looking for. Climate. It has Arctic to tropical areas. However, the ozone is so polluted and the oceans have turned to, the polluted ozone, polluted oceans, and the rest of the planet is basically ash wastes because of all of this fighting and industrialization.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to say, I thought Armageddon was just like a straight up, like, almost like Dune, straight up desert.
It's more, I think it's a little bit more like if the Mad Max setting had a lot of people living on it and was constantly covered in clouds because of the amount of pollution. It's industrialization that's ruined the planet.
Not the 2 or 3 was and all the demons and
it sounds like I think a lot of the damage was done before that because it's a hive. I mean, it's a hive planet.
Yeah,
and it's a hive planet given over to the industry of providing material for the war machine of the Imperium. So
Armageddon's been through it,
Been through it, yeah.
It's just a little used up.
So the bulk of the subcontinents of Armageddon Prime and Secundus are covered in ash wastes, the after effects of a millennium of industrial pollution. Several hive cities house the planet's human population and the industries of Armageddon. These include the Tempestor, Darethmire, and Volcanus on Armageddon Prime, and Infernus, Hades, Acheron, Hell's Reach, and Tartarus on Armageddon Secundus. To the north of Armageddon Prime and Secundus are the Fire Wastes, which are home to the mining and resource gathering industries that support the Hive City's factories. This is an extremely arid region which has been strip mined far beyond the point that it can ever maintain a living ecosystem. To the south of the main continent is the ice-covered Deadlands. This is where all of the polluted ice is, and it's that polluted ice that's melted and heavily purified to provide drinking water and air for those who live in the Armageddon Hive cities.
Forbidden ice cubes, man.
That's right.
Spicy ice.
Don't lick that spicy ice. So the Fire Wastes, again, they're up in the north, where one would expect a cold region of like the North Pole, possibly indicating that it is not, in fact, the furthest northern territory on the planet. So there could be something even further up there. They just don't go into it. Or it's just been strip mined so bad that it's fucking ruined. It's the location of many of the ore mines that supply the main settlement of Armageddon's regions with resources. The vast Sierra Rocky Mountains cover most of the northern region of the Fire Wastes. They are burning volcanic mountains where nothing can survive. It's from here that the river Hesiofus springs, which is dammed by the Qualbach Spur hydroelectric dam, which provides power to the Fire Wastes mining operations. The dam also splits the river into two. There is a pass through the Suriana Rock Range named the Kogan Creek Canyon, which used to be a fast-flowing river but has since dried up and turned into a hot desert-like pass. Kind of makes me think of Death Valley a little bit, whose heat and other hazards can kill even the best-prepared travelers. The Black Lung tar pits are another region of the inhospitable terrain, although these pits have been mined for thousands of years and the ore is used in the industrial processing of the main Armageddon continent. There's another river.
I got the Black Lung, Pop.
I got the Black Lung. I love how it's called the Black Lung tar pits. And they're like, it's not that bad anymore. There's another river that is the Cerridus River, which goes around the Black Lung tar pits and past the Cerridus River Refinery and the Cerridus River Mineral Storage Facility and exits into the Boiling Sea via the Patani Bay Penal Colony. I do not get an idea that anything on this planet is nice. I don't imagine that the Boiling Sea is nice. I don't think that the river going... What's up?
I said I didn't pick that up. I thought it was a very nice place.
The sea contains the Arbian oil platforms, vital for the functioning of the weapon manufacturers on the mainland, and the main port is named Fire Harbor and is home to hundreds of miles of docks and rigging equipment designed to transport the minerals evacuated and refined from the Fire Wastes to the hives of Armageddon. There's also another ore mine off the main Fire Wastes. Far to the east, there used to be an undersea pipeline just to the west, but that has since been destroyed when the other end of the pipeline was captured by Orks. So pretty much as bad as you can get it up in the Fire Wastes. I get the idea. I mean, they don't outright state it, but I kind of get the idea that all of the mining and strip mining and probably blasting and because that's what they do in strip mining, right? They dig a bunch of holes and then they fucking pump it full of TNT and blast it. And at a certain point, you're going to expose deep volcanoes, right? You're going to expose all that deep magma crap and it's just going to boil to the surface constantly.
So something's getting exposed.
It's an interesting area. I think it sets up a lot of good ideas if you wanted to play around, especially with some of the stuff that we're starting to see come out for Necromunda. If you wanted to play with some more ash waste stuff, you've got a little bit more ashy waste stuff that you could play with. Yeah.
I mean, I'd want to see like, I mean, maybe there is, I got to look into it a little bit more, but I wonder if they might be infested with a Gene Stealer cult and how they would look. I wonder if it's like Rusted Claw or something that they might be infested with.
I would say that Armageddon would be especially now with all the chaosy crap going on.
Right. Now you got Chaos, Genestealer called, Orks. You fucked from all sides.
Right. So the Deadlands is the small frozen continent that is to the south, and that's split into two areas, the Deadlands proper and the Narathi Peninsula. The entire continent is far enough to the south that it is completely covered in ice, and as such is used primarily as water creation and purification. It is attacked with unexpected heavy forces of orcs often, or it used to be attacked with unexpectedly heavy forces of orcs often. The Deadlands themselves are the westernmost of the two regions of the continent. It contains one of the two main water processing plants and is broken down into the St. Capelline water processing plant and the Minor Phaedra River water processing plant. The water is then pumped through the overland pipes to the Lamari Channel water pumping station, which stores it and then distributes it to the Hive of Hell's Reach and then further to Tartarus and the other hives. There is also the Dante's Canyon oil drilling station, which supplies oil to the south of the main Armageddon continent. I like that they put effort into it. And we had talked about this when we developed our water world. There's a lot of like oil drilling stuff. They've put that thought into the fact that industry to make the planet function exists. It's not just, and not that 40k is guilty of this, but science fiction is guilty of the whole idea of like, oh, well, Tatooine exports moisture from its moisture farms. Okay, well, how does Tatooine function amongst itself? Oh, no one thought of that. No one. Armageddon is fleshed out to the point where they've got this area provides water to the hives. This area provides oil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's also the fact that, I mean, Armageddon is such a lore-rich planet. Like, there's so much that happened there. I can't say I'm not surprised that they didn't actually add, like, I'm sure this is all information gathered from, like, multiple books on Armageddon. Like, oh, the battle of, Dante's, what was it? Dante's fucking Peak or whatever the fuck that the oil refinery shit. So whatever it was.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Well, and that's also something that, like, if it doesn't exist, you can go back and make it. Like you were saying, there's all this strip mining stuff up in the fire wastes. That'd be a great place to put Genestealer Cult.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Especially since that's what Genestealer Cult does. They mine.
They blow shit up.
So there's also the Valdez Gamma oil platform. There's the Yarrick Point oil drilling station located off the west part of the Deadlands. And finally, there is the Zebra Ice Station Defense Fortress, which protects the entire region from orbital attacks and provides a vital bastion of strength to the defenders of the region. There are 2 Ork rock landing sites as well, and an Ork submersible shipyard located to the north of the Zebra Ice Defense Fortress. So apparently it's not very defensy. These produce the 2 huge gigatankers that the Orks use to assault the hive cities on the south coast of Armageddon's main continent. So it's pretty cool that the Orks have a presence, had a presence. The information about Armageddon being a demon world is new. So a lot of this stuff that I was able to dig up and I'm kind of sharing deals a lot more with the Wars of Armageddon and the prehistory of Armageddon.
Right.
The Netherian Peninsula has quite a few more water processing plants. There's the Eagle River water processing plant that is situated on the heavily polluted Eagle River. So I like even down like in the ice, everything's polluted. I imagine there's like fucking ash and shit in it.
All kinds of goodies.
Oh yeah, damn minerals.
It's all right. It gives it flavor.
It's pH balanced.
There's the Magard Rock water production plant and the Resolute Bay water processing plant. They definitely put a lot of thought into all this stuff. There's the Netherian Peninsula water pumping station that pumps seawater up into the main continent of Armageddon. So I guess they must refine seawater too, separate out salt somehow. There's also the Valdez Omega oil platform, which provides oil to several places, and the McCready Cape Research Facility, which contains many captured orcs. So, that are being studied by the Mechanicus, because that's the thing that you want to do. You just want to chop up orc parts.
And attach other orc parts to it.
literally, orcs are like worms, right? Like earthworm. Like if you chop it up, it's just gonna grow a couple of orcs. Like why would you do that?
You chop it up and then you like stick his head like on his arm, like where his armpit is, and then you stick his arm like where his head is, and it's like just fuck him up. Looking like all those fucking toys from Toy Story.
Toy Story. So to the north of all of this stuff is the Orkwick Airfield, a haven for orc fighters in the south. Also, the SS Ice Rock is located close to Orkwick. It is a giant iceberg housing thousands of orcs that requires an engine big enough to move it across the ocean, which the orcs use to assault various parts of Armageddon. This is another place where orc rocks have dropped. Finally, there is an Imperial emplacement OC-1867, Armageddon Annie gun battery emplacement, which when occupied with the emplacement SSB-1776, Lethal Lucy, near Hive Hellsreach, it served to defend the south against orbital bombardments, which could destroy the undersea pipelines. It also forms a bastion of defense power enough to hold the orcs back long enough for the Imperials to move reinforcements to where they're needed. This kind of makes me think of the Guns of Navarone, if you guys are familiar. Tom, I'm sure you're familiar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dude, what if there was like an orc aircraft carrier?
That's the SS Ice Rock.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, they also have several orc drop sites that are on the SS Ice Rock.
That they call it the Ice Rock?
Yeah, and it's just an iceberg that the orcs strapped an engine to.
Oh my god. Talking about a legit one, not a fucking something that they strapped a rocket on and gave it a name.
Hey, look, this is literally your faction, dude.
Nah, that ain't proper.
I'm gonna name this rocket blast off buttfucker.
So
Stupid.
on Armageddon Prime, which is part of the main subcontinents, there are 3 large Hive cities. So Hive Volcanis is in the far western edge of Armageddon Prime. Its 2 most obvious features are the gigantic mountain ranges to the south and the many islands which are off to its west. The Volcanis Mountains and the Volcanis Ridge cover most of the northern half of the area. And atop the largest mountain is the Volcanis Mountain Space Defense Fortress, which was overrun by orcs from a rock drop site that happened just to its east. The easiest path from the mountains is the Mayheim Gap, named for the Iron Skull's Titan Legion Precept Curtis Mayhem, a hero of the Second War of Armageddon. I like that they sprinkle in like Titan heroes and stuff.
Yeah, like they had like Dante and Yarick and
yeah,
I guess Titan heroes too. That's pretty dope.
I'm sure a bunch of heroes came out of all this writing.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Armageddon is the place where everybody goes. Like it's like the one place. Oh man, this guy, he's a hero of this. He went here and did this, and it's on Armageddon.
Yeah,
right.
They should have like a canon called like Gaz's ass crack or some shit.
They probably do. The Hive Volcanis itself occupies the central area of Armageddon Prime, and there is a giant motorway that is called the Vulcan Bridge. In the west, on a number of islands, is the Volcanis Archipelago Offshore Defense, which patrol the rivers and waterways leading up to the Volcanis Hive. Also, the Nemesis Isle Penal Facility is located nearby, holding the worst criminals from the hives of Armageddon. I think that's cool that this idea of this like giant like bridge causeway that leads to the opening of the hive is neat.
You know, it just crossed my mind.
What's up?
Why do orcs wear pants?
I don't know.
What are they hiding?
I don't know.
Fleshy bit.
What fleshy bit?
The dangly bits.
They don't want to get. They don't want to get a rash getting all dust up in their crotch.
They don't want to lose their mushroom.
Yeah, they don't want to get a rash when their legs rub together.
No, that's not it. Well, what are they hiding? What are they hiding, really?
The extra gun.
Well,
it's the crotch gun, man. Come on.
Well, they got nipples. So
they do. Milk squigs. Use their technical name, milk squigs.
What if they got dick squigs? They're just like, yeah, fucking bam.
Get
It's
it.
just like a fat cucumber that they just attach to their.
They call me the human torpedo.
One just takes like another orc's leg. It's just like, Brad.
Oh my god.
It's like I can flex it.
It's a hand. Just a fist.
It's a holding another gun. I'm telling you guys,
Fist
it's
would be
another
end of it.
shooter. Come on, it's another shooter.
It's Cock Driller 9000.
It's a drill.
Sex
They
machine.
call me no genitals arm dong.
So
All,
next,
all cock, no balls.
so next there's Hive Tempestor. The main feature of this hive is the docks and pipelines that come in from the fire wastes. So a bunch of stuff comes from the fire wastes.
I
before
said
getting
I said
spread
there was a lot of
elsewhere.
pipes. I said it.
You did. There's also an orc submersible graveyard from which the orcs launched a bunch of attacks against the hive and subsequently overrun it. To the north is some ash wastelands created from the Tempestor East Factory Complex and the Morpheus Factory Complex, as well as the Catrid water purification plant on the Morpheus River. There's an orc rock drop site that's located just to the southeast of this hive. Lots of orc stuff everywhere is the takeaway.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said like the outside of the hives, you can't really survive. So that's why you got
Right.
orcs.
Orcs and shitty weather.
Yeah. So Hive Deathmire is the northern central area, is located in the northern central area of its region, and its most prominent features is that it is close to the equatorial jungle and the Hecate Mountains. Also, there is Death Ridge, which just sounds amazing, where the orcs can link up with the feral orcs that come out of the equatorial jungle to launch attacks on this hive and any of the others. There are
yes.
two orc rock drop sites to the west and the Phallic
Phallic Bridge. Yes, phallic.
Fledgethon Bridge. Wow. Also to the west, and the River Insane, which tunnels through the center of the region. The River Insane.
Good name. Good strong name.
Right. And the Hecate Mountains is the Eyes of the Emperor's Observatory, which watches over the vast area of Armageddon Prime.
Man, how good can he see? He's fucking
movements.
dead.
Well, I like how it's an observatory, right? So it's the Emperor's, the Eyes of the Emperor Observatory. So like an observatory usually looks at the stars, right?
Yeah.
So much orc shit here. We turned it down to the plane.
Yeah, what's that guy?
What's
What's the blind dude that plays piano?
Ray Charles.
Ray Charles?
Yeah. Fucking Ray Charles fucking
Oh shit! Give me money.
Yeah. So as Kevin had mentioned, the equatorial jungles have lots of feral orcs in them, and there's actually the Armageddon orc hunters that go into. They specifically hunt the orcs in these jungles.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that guard guys.
It's crazy with all this shit. Like we're talking about all of these different areas where like orcs have infested, and space marines and Imperial Guard space. That's what they're called. Space Marines and Imperial Guard. They've had all these crazy battlefields, and all this shit's like reduced to ash, and it's just polluted. And there's this fucking gnarly jungle that you don't want to go into too.
I would make like this. I've always wanted to do this, but I want to make a Digging-Knobs army.
Dude, did you see you should go look. I posted a link. The most recent Mag 28 release has an article on Digging-Knobs.
I fucking love Digging-Knobs.
There's some
dude.
cool shit
so,
in there, dude.
So hilarious. It's just a bunch of dudes that paint themselves green and pretend to be orcs.
Oh, that's great.
It's so good, dude.
You gotta be really
I could see
careful how you say it,
Digging-Knobs. I could see Digging-Knobs coming from Armageddon.
Right?
Totally, man.
Like what do you call it? What are the orc hunters called?
The Armageddon. Oh man, you're gonna make me look it up.
Oh shit! But it's just like the Armageddon orc headhunters that just went crazy. They just turned into Digging-Knobs.
Oh, we live in a crab.
Oh yeah, they're called the Armageddon Orc Hunters. Some call it the Armageddon Orc Hunters, sometimes referred to as Skull Takers, are elite warriors that were formed after the Second War of Armageddon from the survivors of various destroyed Imperial Guard regiments. They specialize in jungle warfare and are stationed in the remote Cerebera base, which is just outside of the last hive we talked about. What hive was that? Was Hive Deathmire. I also love that the name is Deathmire.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool name.
Armageddon Secundus, which is the lower portion of the continent, has 5 hives. The first of which is Hive Hell's Reach. It dominates half of the Balboa Mountains, which overlook the Grendel Lock and a huge dock, which has been mostly overrun by orcs. Further to the southeast is the Valdez Alpha offshore oil platform, which provides vital resources to the factories of Armageddon. There's a couple of water pumping stations. The Ironside shipyards are also to the south, where ships are built and repaired, but this area was also quickly overrun by orcs. There is one orc drop site as well as a Hell's Highway and Braxton Barrier where there are gigantic weapon batteries where the gigantic weapon battery called Lethal Lucy is located. We talked about that earlier. There's also part of the Hemlock Cordon and some other Imperial Force choke points. So it's interesting that like everything about Armageddon, they're not really, and this goes to writing a planet that has history. They're not talking about Armageddon in its heyday. They're saying, Hell's Reach used to do this. Hell's Reach used to be this shipping center. Well, that shipyard is now gone because of the orcs, and the secondary shipyard is now gone because of the orcs. So you can kind of play around with that idea. Or you were talking about Gene Stealer Cult. You could be like, this facility up in the north used to be part of, and you come up with a mining name, Imperial Minehead or something, and you're like, but now it's part of what did you call them? The Rusted Cogs?
Yeah, the Rusted Cog. I think it's the Rusted Claw and the bladed cogs.
Not the Rusted Cocks?
Rusted Claw. Bladed cocks.
I make one cock joke and you're like, no, Ryan, you're wrong.
It's the bladed cocks.
So Hive Furnace is dominated by the region that Hive Furnace is in is dominated by 2 mountain ranges, the Palladius Mountains and the Diablo Mountains, with Orc Mountain located at the peak of the Diablo Mountains. Hive Furnace is located at the center
Extremely
of the
original.
region. Right. And
What's that? That's Orc Mountain. Why is that called Orc Mountain?
There. It looks like an orc.
I don't know, Jeff. Why is it called Orc Mountain?
When the sun's coming up and you squint one eye and you half drunk, kind of looks like an orc.
That's like Swamp People. You ever watch that show? There's one dude in it who's always like, I swear to God, he's like, that alligator, that done broke a tree. I'm gonna call him Tree Breaker. And I was like, his name's for these, like, that's a big damn gator. I'm gonna name him Big Damn Gator. You got Big Damn Gator. Like,
what is this show called? Because when I make my orc army, I'm just going to listen to that guy to name everything.
That's literally how he talks. He's like, that's a Big Damn Gator. I'm going to name it Big Damn Gator. That's his name. That's like literally how it names. Like, that gator's name Boat Hitter. It hit my boat. Like,
so the hive itself is located in the center of the region, and it's linked with the motorway and the Styges bridges to the Hive Hell's Reach area. Blech. The Diablo Forge Complex, located to the east of the Hive, saw the first action with orcs and was the site of the battle between the orcs and the Titan Legio Crucis. 6 Titans and 8 orc Gargants were destroyed, but in the process, the battle practically destroyed the entire Forge Complex. That's pretty cool. I like this industrial world. There's definitely all of these different like Mechanicus sounding things everywhere.
I didn't know it was going to... I mean, I guess I should have known. I didn't know they were going to have a fucking name for each goddamn power plant on this planet. This is...
I've left a bunch out, too. Every region has a bunch of oil refineries and a bunch of water processing plants, but unless they're cool or have guns or battles associated with them, they're just there.
Yeah. They're all, this is the oil refinery dialect, and then over here we have the oil refinery John. He doesn't do much.
Why is it named John? The guy that built it was named John.
His name was John, and we don't go there very often. But Helveticus, that's where we go.
So Diablois, just stick to a fucking language. Either Diablos or Weird Latin. Do not put Diablo and Weird Latin in one word, 40K. You're killing me here.
It's extra Latin.
Diablois Cove.
It's the Diablo Est.
Became the center of orc fighting to prevent resources from reaching the Hive Furnace, and as such, many gigatankers have been were destroyed in this area. The equatorial jungle also touches this area, so there's a lot of bleed over from feral orcs. What is a gigatanker?
I'm assuming it's just a large tanker that fucking transports oil. Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
If Kevin was here, he could say it a little more elegantly.
No, I feel like gigatanker's got to be an orc thing, right?
No.
No? You think it's an Imperial thing?
Yeah, I think it's just a gigantic transportation
That's
vehicle.
way too like complex of a word. Yeah. Orcs, it would be like big tanker. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
It's called tanker, not tanka. Not orc.
There is a gigablasta.
I think that's probably why I was in my head.
Blasta, not blaster. That's tanker. It's proper English. Not orcs.
Yeah, I think it's gigablast. It's like the something giga something. It's giga shooter or something like that.
That's my big fuelie pod.
So there's the Stygian Bulwark, which is located to the east of the Infernus South Forge complex, and this is built to protect from orcs hiding in the Palladius Mountains. There's Hades Hive. Hades Hive is a blasted area. The entire Hive city itself was destroyed early on in the Third War of Armageddon by an orbital bombardment of asteroids in vengeance for the Hive's victory over the Orks in the Second War of Armageddon, where Hades Hive was the linchpin in defeating the Orks by holding up as many of their offensives as it could. As we mentioned earlier, Hades Hive is where Yarick was almost fatally or near fatally wounded. They rebuilt him.
Oh, Balai.
There's a couple of orc drop sites that are located close to the motorway that leads into Hades Hive. I like that.
You see,
I want to know what a motorway looks like. I am picturing this just fucking enormous bridge that leads into like the center of these hives.
You see how orcs have rock drop sites, but Blood Angels were like, nah, fuck it, drop on top of the hive.
As I said, we're here to kill orcs.
But like the orcs were like
just in the way.
The orcs were just like, hey, you know what? You know what would be awesome if we had a drop site and then we go fuck them up, and not some pansy ass shit like Blood Angels are like, we're just gonna drop on top. Fuck 'em.
Yeah, well, I mean, the orcs want to fight them. They don't just want to kill them with a rock.
Yeah, that's true.
Blood Angels, fucking Blood Angels.
In the northwest of the Hades Hive region is Yarick's Hope Harbor, and that is the current center, or was the current center of Imperial resistance.
Yep, that got overran by orcs.
Yep.
Oh, did it?
It has been largely destroyed. However, they're still able to launch small attack craft from the area to defend pipelines that run across the boiling sea. It's really interesting that so much of the Imperial defenses seem to be like centered around protecting, and it makes sense, protecting their
assets.
Their pipeline
resources.
Their resource lines. So there's Hive Acheron. It's far to the east on the continent, and it covers a vast area of ash wastes. So the region that it controls, lots of Minotaurum factories, lots of military production, bombs and stuff like that. I want to see pictures of these fucking motorways. Everything's got these cool ass motorways that like the way that they're described, these motorways, by the way, is that like they lead into, like, if you look at a hive as being like a vast pyramid, like a pyramid of Egypt or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about when they have those old reconstructions of the pyramids and there's that huge fucking ramp that leads like right up to the front of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like from the Nile River. That's what I'm picturing these motorways looking like.
It probably just looks like the roads from Minority Report.
Or that. So
you think it's all cool? You're like, it's going to look so cool. Then you talk to like the designer against Workshop, and they're like, yes, right. So I've got this multi-lane road, and there's nothing on it. It's just boring pavement. And you're like, great. That's what I want.
Just looks like an airstrip.
Yeah,
but it sounded really cool.
You're like, oh, is it all gothic and stuff? They're like, no, it's just pavement. I fucking hate you.
You ruin everything that is
ruined fucking everything.
So Hive Acheron actually fell to the Orks, but this was only through the treachery of Hermann von Straub when he handed control over to them because he's a little bitch.
No, he's doing the right thing.
He's doing, yeah, of course. You hear this? You hear this
Yeah.
anti-imperial propaganda we got to deal with, Tom?
Well, I mean, it's better than Kevin.
Herman von Stroke.
So the last hive is Hive Tartarus. It's in the southeast of the Armageddon Secundus, and the hive itself is again located at the center of the region. It's surrounded and constantly besieged and has little hope for survival. There's a bunch of factories outside, factory complexes and stuff like that that produce weapons that they send out into the ash wastes, but everything is just constantly being raided by the Ork rock sites that overlook the entire area. It kind of sounds like it's in a box canyon a little bit. So it's down in this
Blood Gulch Outpost number 1.
right? And there's just all of these Ork rocks around it that just kind of like fuck with the city or the hive city constantly. It gives me a lot of ideas. All of the detail is as sparse in certain places and is over complicated in other areas. Like Marky was mentioning, all of the oil refineries, they're interesting to know that they're there, and it's interesting to know that somebody thought about it. But at a certain point, you're like, man, there's oil refineries around every single hive, which makes sense. You know, as we're developing Innsmouth hive, we're talking about, well, obviously there has to be ice harvesting because they get water and they get air from somewhere. So we talk about these ideas. So it's interesting to know that it exists. But at the same time, it also feels like, what do the hives import? What do they export? What do they make? And those would be details that I would put into it. And maybe they're just not details that were important to setting up the campaign of Armageddon, I guess. Maybe you care more about strategic military sites that can be taken over and captured.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these refineries and whatnot were probably like settings for battles from, past novels.
Right, that makes sense. So yeah, there's the equatorial jungle, which you mentioned. It's a very, very large, mainly forested area. There's several different places that they can move through it, different motorways and stuff like that. I like this idea of you know what I'm picturing every time I say motorway, it just popped into my head how to frame it, and I forgot the fucking word. The aqueducts, like the Roman aqueducts. You know how they were all like, when you see pictures of them, they're all super fucking high in the air. That's what I picture these motorways being.
You need Kevin for this conversation.
Monorail.
Yeah. So you need Kevin for this conversation because
Tom got me.
Well, no, I know Tom, but I know Tom doesn't give a shit about aqueducts. Kevin would be like, yeah, the aqueduct fucking made in 1502 and was fucking like some obscure bullshit that I don't care about.
Well, you see, there's a story in a book where someone falls into the aqueduct. That's Kevin.
Sucked in, sent down 20 miles down the aqueduct.
All right, so let's
came out looking like a balloon.
Let's get into the details that Marky wants to know about. One of the places where the motorway passes through Cerebria Base, which is the home to the unit known as the Armageddon Ork Hunters, from which they launch their assaults on the feral orcs of the jungle. These orcs are left over from the first orc invasion during the Second War of Armageddon, and they've all reverted to a feral state. There are also the ruins of Wolf Outpost, which makes me think of Whiskey Outpost from Starship Troopers, which was destroyed by its base commander activating the self-destruct mechanism when it was overrun by orcs.
Goody.
Sounds about right.
And in classic Imperial fashion, it flattened the surrounding terrain for 40 miles.
Man, don't nobody want to have fun out here.
Nice.
Bunch of bitches.
But yeah, it sounds like for whatever reason, this jungle either thrives on or it just somehow beats the odds and continues to exist, which is weird if you think about it. However, it's kind of balanced because to the south, or the very south border, is the Plague Marshes. This is where a large warband of feral orcs thrive. Unfortunately, hundreds of Imperial guardsmen die of plague and disease that are caused by the giant insects that inhabit the area, preventing effective sweeps of these marshes of even those guardsmen serving in the Armageddon Ork Hunters to get rid of all of the orcs unless they have special antiviral drugs.
Good old flora and fauna.
Everything. Yeah. But it's weird. Like, you got to think there has to be more details, and maybe no one's ever thought about it. But I would put more details into why the hell the damn stuff continued to exist.
I'm sure it just kind of adds like flavors to the planet.
Yeah. So yeah, there's several other areas. Phoenix Island is something that's mentioned. It's a big area right off the coast of the Fire Wastes where they do a bunch of other mining and refinery and storage. There's also a spaceport there that used to be the home base or used to house the Space Marine Thunderbolts and Imperial Navy Furies. So that used to be where the Air Force was all contained. The last important thing really to kind of talk about when it comes to Armageddon is the Armageddon pattern technology. So Armageddon is known for producing its own patterns of numerous weapons and vehicles, such as the M40 Armageddon pattern autogun and the Armageddon pattern Basculus, Sentinel Combat Walker, and Medusa. One of the defining characteristics of the Armageddon pattern vehicles is that they are environmentally sealed, a necessity for fighting on Armageddon and other Hive worlds like it in order to protect the vehicle's occupants from the corrosive effects of the planet's ash wastes.
Oh, so that's like encased.
Vacuum sealed for freshness whenever fucking you got a Kevin in your tanker.
It's got
you got a Kevin tanker that just rips ass constantly.
We're not very good at making technology, but what can we do? We'll put a roof on it.
Put a roof
that's working.
So the map
genius.
It's basically put a roof on it. Yes.
The map's pretty cool. It basically we'll try to post up if I can remember, I'll post a link up to the map. But yeah, guys, if you're more interested in learning more stuff about Armageddon, I'm sure there's definitely articles you can find online about it. There's some old supplement books. I pulled a lot of the data that I found on it from the primary rule books, and then honestly, for the first time in a while, used the wiki to kind of fill in some of the details I didn't know. Armageddon is cool. Armageddon's really, really fleshed out. There's obviously a huge back and forth between orcs versus men that goes into it, which is super neat. Lots of dense history as far as the battles that have been fought. And that wasn't with our planet spotlights. Our goal is not to talk about every single battle. Our goal is to talk about what information exists in the major beats of the history of the planet, the things that kind of formed its culture, and then what's the environment look like? What animals might live there? What plants might live there?
Well, and one thing is especially about planets of note, being this one in particular, Armageddon. When it comes to a story, standpoint and lore, whenever you hear about a crazy heroic act, whether it be from an Imperial Guard or Space Marine or Titan or something like that, 9 times out of 10, well, I won't say 9 times out of 10, but a good amount, it happened on Armageddon.
Yeah.
There was, so when I used to do some other like storytelling and stuff where we would come up with lore for various things like Wasteland Weekend, right? Or some events like Ren Fairs and stuff like that. We'll use Ren Fair as an example. Oftentimes when we tell a story and you're doing like an interactive role play, we've discussed things about like, oh, when did your character learn how to do this? There's always that one point in time and one place that everybody who makes up lore has agreed upon as a point, right? A historical point that doesn't change, right? Armageddon can be used as that. Like there was, example like, oh yeah, your character lost his arm. Where did he lose his arm? Oh, in the Battle of Gridneck, and you could have all decided that the Battle of Gridneck was when this force fought this force. And whatever you say, like, say for instance, Mark and I are on opposite sides. I'm like, oh yeah, I lost my arm in the Battle of Gridneck. And Mark just goes,
I lost my nuts.
Well, or he would agree. He'd go, yes, that happened. I recall that, and that's kind of like Armageddon. So if you're writing, it's a really good point to start off if you have like an Imperial Guard regiment or something, and you want to have some backstory to it, but you don't really know where to go or know how to create one yourself. You could be like, oh, these guys were a regiment originally assigned to Armageddon.
Yeah. These guys were sent from my home planet to Armageddon to fight whatever.
Yeah. These guys got real good at killing orcs because they fought on Armageddon. Boom, right there. Start of your army. It's a really, and I mean, it's true. Whenever you hear little stuff about like, oh man, the Flesh Terrors, I heard the Flesh Terrors, the Space Marines, those guys killed a bunch of civilians. Yeah, it happened on Armageddon.
Yeah.
Did I make that up? You don't know. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like that's what's really cool about the War of Armageddon.
It's obscure enough that there was a lot of shit that went down.
Bingo,
A lot of shit. And that's obviously we're developing the Innsmouth Hive from a different perspective because we're not looking at the major wars and the major battles of the Imperium's history. We're looking at the kind of flotsam and jetsam of everyday life of an Imperial citizen. But that's kind of why we picked and started developing Innsmouth, is the stuff that Tom's talking about. We're creating a centralized, massive sandbox with some rules and some examples, but like we don't care what you do with it. Keep the upper hive in the upper hive, the mid hive in the mid hive, the under hive in the under hive. Know that they that they harvest ice, and you're good. You can pretty much do whatever you want, really, to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, I mean, we oftentimes reference like mama cats, right?
Yeah, we have these places that exist.
Yeah. So it's like, oh yeah, like when did you oh yeah, dude, like, oh, my character, if I got into a fight at Mama Cat's stop. And they'd be like, oh, do you remember
lost
that?
his left nut.
Yeah. And it'd be like, do you remember that? I'd be like, yeah, I was there. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm going to agree with you because we have previously decided that this is a point that we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, obviously, within, there are certain parameters. It's not like, I stabbed a beast in the neck.
I'll killed be like, 40 men.
Yourself. No, you didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
or like the entire, Emperor's Children's Legion arrived at Mama Like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, but and that's, I mean, as far as like story goes on Armageddon, the lore with that, it's so huge. Like everybody's heard of Armageddon. Like everybody's heard about the war on Armageddon. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of what it is. I mean, it takes on its own like fairy tale point at that.
It gives you tidbits to work off of.
Yeah,
and it can be a good template too. Like if you just want to grab, if you're wanting to make your own planet and you don't really have a lot of ideas right now, and you just want to grab a template, as we do these planet spotlights, grab them as a template. You could take
Armageddon is a great template,
and you can go. There's a desert. There's not a desert. There's an area not corrupted. There's an area like destroyed by volcanic activity. There's an area trapped under ice. There's an area that's a crazy ass jungle. And then there's essentially plains, or like they call them ash wastes. But you can imagine they probably at one point were just like plains. And there's a couple of oceans. And there's 9 hives on this, 7 hives on this world, 8 hives on this world. So that gives you an idea. You can put at least 8 hives on a planet, and you can put at least these 4 environments on a planet, and then just mix them up and use them however you want.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean the lore of Armageddon, like, as Ryan was saying, like we just kind of we're going over like the general, like, here's what they are. This is what's happened. These are like certain things that have happened there. These are some little tidbits on people. There's so much more. There's so much more. And we're not going to cover all that stuff, but I mean, this is something that if you've heard something that sounds cool, you can always look into it further, or you can always ask us on another recording if you want further information.
Yeah. Because I guarantee you the only reason all those oil refineries have names is because there's a battle that happened.
That's what I'm saying. There's oil refinery Glagaticus, and then there's oil refinery shithouse over there. Nobody gives a fuck about them. Nothing happens there.
It caught me as cool, and the reason that I included so many of them was because we had talked about that when we did our planet development, that like, which we have to do a second episode, or we have to develop it further. But the fact that planet that we randomly generated, there's all these oil refineries and people are dropped onto them. And I was just like, that's crazy. Like, this is obviously, we didn't plan the Armageddon episode before that episode. We didn't read a bunch of information about Armageddon. These guys really just kind of decided on this cool idea of there being like oil platforms in this ocean world. And I was like, that's
penal
dope.
legion penal colony.
Yeah. Let us know how you liked this episode. Obviously, as we move forward with Planet Spotlights, we'll probably tighten it up and focus a little bit more. I believe we want to do Catachan. We want to do Cadia. We want to do a couple of the different demon worlds. I can never remember the name of the world that's a dude, but we want to do the demon world that's a dude. And we also want to cover things that aren't necessarily in the Imperium's purview. There's a Farsight planet that's like globes of water that orbit each other that I'd fucking love to do a dive on. That sounds awesome as shit.
Oh, you're talking about the enclaves, yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely all sorts of cool crap out there that we can get into, and we'll take suggestions.
Yeah, and if you'd like, and you want like a visual of this, donate some money to our Patreon, and we'll get Mark, we'll strip him down naked and roll him into a ball and then take a picture, and then Ryan will superimpose
exactly what it looks like
into a galactic plane. Okay,
100%.
If you want.
So on that, for those of you not part of our Patreon, you should consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness, because there's actually a video podcast component to this where you get to see our lovely faces. I do minimal editing, and there's about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes a little long, sometimes 40 minutes of extra content at the beginning where we riff off some of our production meeting stuff and just talk about some other things, including like hobby progress and kind of what we're planning on doing or what we're planning on looking at. But one of the other things that I've started trying to do is when we do talk about something like the planet of Armageddon, where there are a lot of pictorial resources, pictures that I can use, I try to put them into the video so you guys can kind of see an idea of what we're talking about. And it could be as simple as just a picture of the planet, or it could be a couple of different maps from it. And the way to get access to that is by donating only $3 a month, the lowest tier of our Patreon, to join our Patreon. The other things that you get at the lowest level are you get involved in our painting contest, which is pretty cool. And we've got some higher levels there too. We ask some of our higher member levels, some of the members in our higher levels get to help us determine which next faction series we might get to, which creative writing topics we might touch. We do Ask Us Anythings a couple of times a year. And we also have some art resources that you only can get access to through our Patreon. So there's I like that, Tom. Very good segue setup.
Yeah, and if you guys donate $500 and we get 5,000 total, we will make a custom calendar edition, swimsuit calendar edition of all of us in various Warhammer poses for you for the very, very inexpensive price of a $500 donation. And then when we hit 5,000, we'll send those calendars.
And if you donate 100, not 100.
Mark
if you
is so
donate
upset with me right now.
If you donate $1 million to us, I should make that. Like, I should add that just to see if anybody.
You would wear a Speedo
really
if we got $5,000. That's just gonna happen. I don't care. I fucking will. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna wear a toucan.
It won't. Yeah. It won't be just a. It won't be just a Speedo. It'll be like a corn berserker Speedo.
Oh my god!
I just need a banana hammock with like a little corn head on it.
Oh my god! Dude.
Mine's gonna be a Hive tyrant.
If we inspired you guys to build a planet, or if you have any questions about building planets, or if you want to get into conversations about building planets, you can reach us directly through email at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or grimdarkgaming@gmail.com. Another great way to connect with us and have all these conversations, especially about lore stuff, is through our Discord community.
Discord is probably one of the best ways to reach out to us. We try very hard to create a community where people interact and we interact back. You know, I've talked to several people on there. Well, we all have, but there are several people on there who can tell you the same thing. We're all there because we get to interact with each other and, you know, basically hang out and talk, even though we're in all different parts of the country. So it's definitely our Discord. If, you know, you guys listen to the podcast but don't really care too much about it, I still implore you to check out the Discord. And, you know, I think it'll open up a new experience for you if you're just a listener. Jumping onto that, becoming something interactive, and, you know, taking the time to say some things, because you will get responses back. Like I said, it's a very interactive Discord that we take a lot of pride in that community. And I think you'll enjoy it. I cannot stress it enough.
Yeah, one of the most rewarding things to all of us too has been seeing the community continue to grow, and it's awesome. It's super, super awesome to have started with this idea. We just wanted to share our thoughts on the lore and our thoughts on creative writing, and then finding like, oh no, there's a lot of people that are into this stuff and want to talk to us about our ideas. So what do we got? We got a website too, right? Am I supposed to talk about our website? We have a website. I promise I'll finish it one day. That's www.underthehiveofmadness.com. We are also very active, or we try to be very active on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a couple of different places. We've got a link tree, and I normally share all of the links down in the show notes and descriptions. With the riots reaching a fever pitch and the Auxilia retreating to the higher levels, looks like me and the boys are about to bathe the corridors of District 69 on sublevel 420.
Very nice.
That's genitals in your mouth.
What?
In the beautiful blue glow of mercury and argon, a hail of automatic brass, and the screech of barely balanced rocket fire. Until next time, we are 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio. Same Vox frequency, same ratty attitude. You know, Armless Joe told me four-armed emperors like to have their snoots booped, but I don't think I trust him.
Where's the snoot?
Where are his arms?
What the fuck is a bloop?